All right. Well, somebody else is going to have to tell the life story of all those dead cows because we've got an A&E biography still to talk about. I got to be honest with you. This was one of my favorite biographies because the subject was such a nice, deserving person. I mean, we've had the biographies of other people in the past, and some of them have been nice. Mick Foley, for example. He's not an egotist. He's a great guy, still loves the business. And you were happy for him. And also, because he's one of the younger guys that they've profiled, they have so much video. They had footage of the first wrestling show he ever went to as a fan. I don't know that would have been possible for anybody else. Well, Kurt Angle's first wrestling show was the ECW when he went to. They didn't want to show footage of that, but he's an odd duck. He's a special case. But yeah, because he's the younger generation, so they have more video and they have more, B-roll and visual representation to back things up. And it was great. He decided that he wanted to be a wrestler at his first show that he saw. And I got to be honest with you. I don't know that I kind of know the feeling. I never thought, well, I'm going to be involved some kind of way. And he's a kid in Ontario with a single mother. They moved around a lot, didn't have a lot of money, but seemed like a great kid and had a great family with his uncles and grandparents and aunts, whatever. And then he and Christian Cage are childhood friends. And seriously, I mean, not even teenage, like wrestling buddies, but childhood, what they looked like they were 8 years old or whatever. And they decide they're going to be a tag team. And he was making the point through this program, decide I'm going to be a wrestler, and I meet a buddy, and we decide we're going to be a tag team, and they actually do it. That was amazing. They had footage of Edge in the crowd in Toronto at Skydome for WrestleMania 6. Where, his family had scraped together to get him a ticket. And then he entered the contest writing an essay on why he should be picked to train at Ron Hutchinson and Sweet Daddy Seki's wrestling school. And Hutchinson still had the letter, which was cool. And then, they had tape of his first match, which was an outlaw mud show, just they could get experience. And I thought it was a great point, a great, detail that Edge actually went to a TV talk show there in Ontario that Bret Hart was a guest on just so he could try to ask him a question, which, what should I do? How do I make it? And Bret's been asked that question a million times. And what kind of advice do you really give on the air? That was something that kept him going. Did you hear what his name was on local radio when he was doing the college radio bit, Edge? Did you?
Yes, indeed. It's Adam Jericho.
Adam Jericho on the radio, ladies and gentlemen. So Christian is wrestling as Christian Cage and Edge is Sexton Hardcastle. And Carl DeMarco sees him. Carl DeMarco was at one time Bret Hart's personal agent, but also was the head of the WWE Canada office. I think in Beyond the Mat? I was in it and I can't even remember. I tried not to be, but that's where we were watching the monitor with Christian and Edge's tryout match. Both guys did a great job, but I'm telling JR, look at this guy. And look at he's got it and he's natural and he took the bump. And I loved Edge as a heel. But JR said, shh, be quiet. We got him for $300 a week each Canadian. So don't talk about how good they are because DeMarco might hear you. Well, at first, before DeMarco had seen him and encouraged him, and then they did the death tours and all the stuff, and then they got the tryout match. And as I said, when I first saw him, that's what I feel real green. But that's kind of how I envisioned him at the start, is a high-level, bleach blonde wrestling heel with a little Rick Rudishness thrown in because of that, lean body and good-looking guy. When they say, okay, Edge is coming, and here comes Edge on TV, and Edge says he has trouble working out who Edge was, who is Edge supposed to be, So did the company. And I remember this also, and that's what I couldn't believe. Well, I could believe it at the time, but here you've got a guy, whether Sexton Hardcastle was a great name or not, you've got this tall guy in great shape with a fantastic physique and young and already fairly well along in his work. And you can't figure out, he's a tortured soul. That was the description. Guess who was behind that description?
Yeah,
I know it's going to be hard.
I'm not sure, bro.
At that time period, that was the thing. He thought in buzzwords. He thought in just shallow one word or one sentence descriptions. He's a tortured soul. He's filled with rage. And that's what he would. So then there's poor Adam Copeland out there now trying to be Edge, who's a tortured soul full of rage. And they're doing videos where he's in the coat and he's walking around the alley. And he didn't know what the fuck to do. And nobody was going to tell him. And I couldn't go up and say, hey, why don't you just do what you fucking been doing and just do it better and more of it? Because that's what got you here. Because I didn't know what fucking creative meant by a tortured soul filled with rage either as applied to a wrestling match. And then, well, go ahead. I was just going to knock poor Jose Estrada out. Go ahead.
Right, but I think the topper was a deaf mute.
Yes, I hadn't thought of that in ages.
Oh, that was awful.
But anyway, so then his debut on TV, in the first time he ever hurt somebody in wrestling, he does the flip over the top rope and knocks Jose Estrada colder than a banker's heart.
Yeah.
On TV, and he gets counted out.
Yeah, not only that, but they had to come out and strap him to a board.
Yes, because it was a neck, injury. Did what you saw when he flipped over the top rope, his leg landed on right on the top of Jose's head, and it knocked him, fucking screwy. And but anyway, then they glossed over my favorite part of his evolution, the Brood. I loved that gimmick. The vampires were hot. First Blood was hot on TV. The fucking novels, they all three looked good. They looked young, and the music, they were cool. The kids were starting to like it. The whole fucking, the Freebird 3-man team, wild ass rednecks drinking Jack Daniels. They were, fucking cool looking vampires drinking blood. But they glossed over that fairly quickly. And then the tag team with Edge and Christian, where they became themselves. And this is where they started, this is where we learned to be entertainers. Well, it was silly, but it was the silly era. I think their matches probably did more to get them over than the silliness. But again, when you go back and look at these retrospectives, I said it on last week's program that Mick Foley unfortunately has to bear the burden of having encouraged all the garbage wrestlers because they were so shallow and superficial, they couldn't see through what made him special. All they got was the falling off things and hitting with blunt instruments. They didn't understand the vocal ability, the verbal ability, the intelligence, the unique charisma and likability as a person that he had, and the psychology that he put into things he did, and the whole package. They just saw the mayhem and wanted to copy that. Well, then they get into the ladder matches, and then the tables, ladders, and chairs matches. And I like Edge. I like Christian. I have nothing against them. I think Edge would have gotten over as a main event star anyway without the ladders and chairs and tables. I think it would have been easier and quicker had they had anybody booking him to do that, or booking anybody to do that in those days, instead of doing all these stunt shows, which is where or what caused us to end up where we are, they shouldn't have been allowed to do these matches. The office should have cracked down. Vince should have cracked down, because not only ladder matches and table ladder chair, and then 3-team ladder matches, and the pressure to top themselves time and time again that they admitted to. Said, well, there's pressure to top it since we got to top ourselves. Well, what that led to was not only Edge's, which we'll get to, premature retirement and bad neck and years of pain and misery. Jeff Hardy and Matt Hardy ain't moving like they were when they were spry youngsters. Christian seems to have mostly been spared. I remember one of those ladders with Joey Mercury and John Morrison. Didn't they cave Johnny Nitro's face in and knock his teeth out? And whatever substance abuse problems was led to from these. I'm not knocking Edge, and I love this show, the whole ladder match, TLC match, to show the guys that he was tough. They didn't think Edge was tough until he took all those bumps and kept coming. Well, they should have, because he was one of the boys already. And for fuck's sake, how childish can we be? But I don't think that Edge and Christian, I'm happy for them because they were a tag team that achieved their real boyhood dreams, not the fake one that Vince gave Michaels, but the real legitimate boyhood dream they had. The tables, ladders, and chairs, the company let go too far. And as a result, now not only is it a staple of every outlaw indie show in the world where somebody's willing to risk their life for no reward whatsoever, but it's fucked up the mainstream wrestling business as well, because that's all you see now. Stunts and stipulations and multiple man bullshit. So this is their cross to bear, like it mix with the the imitators like the bank addicted drug robber. But then Edge becomes a single. Well, first Christian turned on Edge. Edge becomes a single, but then he teamed up with Hulk Hogan. Do you remember Edge and Hulk Hogan winning the tag team title? I didn't even remember this ever happened.
I had a faint recollection of it. It was, during Hogan's stint there where I forget if it was before he beat Triple H for the WWF title, that quick switch, or if it was before the whole Mr. America thing.
Well, regardless, it meant a big deal. It was a big deal to Edge. It was his childhood hero, so he got to do that. And I was not aware that Edge was having trouble with his neck and the headaches and the arm trouble and everything as early as he was. But then by 2003, he had that first surgery, a plate and screws in his neck. And again, I don't even blame the guys like this who have real talent, who aren't just garbage wrestlers that do stunts, but who have real talent and can be top guys. I don't feel as bad for them doing this stuff to get over when they clearly have the talent and they should be in the spot anyway. I blame more the office for making it a necessity or allowing it to happen. And he was depressed over the surgery, and it was a very honest and sad, retelling of the story. But there's no reason that guy, with the look and the talent that he had, should have had to do all that horse shit that nobody else in the wrestling business had ever done before, or was ever willing to do, or was ever allowed to do. It happened when the Marks took over the business in the office. And that led to allowing these guys to go too far. And they didn't even have competition. There was no WCW. TNA was not competition. They were kayfabing themselves, as Vince used to say. So anyway, Edge becomes a better heel Then he was a babyface after he switches and gets the big return in Toronto, and he turns and wins Money in the Bank and blah, 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 which is what I saw in 1997. Yes, he's a good babyface and he can do that, but he was a more natural heel. And that's what was really going to get him over to the point where that eventually he would become a babyface because he was established and he was a top guy and the people liked him. And then they went into, the Edge and Cena matches, and, we're basically, and we'll get into this a little bit on Rivals. We're going to start chewing our food twice, but Edge wins the title the first time, gets the belt, and loses it back to Cena 3 weeks later. And he's like, what the fuck? And that's bad for him because, again, it plagued Tommy Rich back in the day when he only got the thing for 4 days. But Edge was hoping a run was coming, and then he loses it right back so Cena can go work with Triple H. So that pissed him off and made him want to prove something. And he gets together with Mick Foley. And again, they both want to prove something, which they prove it with tacks and flaming tables. That again has encouraged so many imitators and so many people without either one of these guys' appeal or talent. And after that, his body was broken. And they tell the story. They showed all those bump after bump after bump. And he gets hit with a chair to the back before WrestleMania of 2011. And his arms just go numb from a chair to the back. And then he goes ahead and has the WrestleMania match and finds out that his neck is fucked up again and he's got to retire. And that was, I remember the retirement speech on Raw was emotional. And that's where you really feel bad for the guy because he had to walk away while he was on top doing what he always wanted to do. And that's just, bullshit under any circumstances. But again, I mean, I say more, he was willing to do it and that's great, but he shouldn't have been allowed to that much for that long, to that extent.
Yeah. And knowing the context of that first kind of, I don't know, I'll call it a stinger after he got hit with a chair by Brodus Clay. Knowing that was transpiring on a live SmackDown. Oof, it's, very scary. It seems almost improbable that he got cleared for WrestleMania 27. He passed the same day, I guess, whatever strength test that they gave him.
I think somebody said, squeeze my hand. Okay, I feel you.
Yeah.
All right, you're good. It was a little looser back but here's another thing. People say, well, there was absolutely no medical care for the wrestlers back in the territory days. And what would happen? There was no EMT on site. What would happen if someone was paralyzed? I never saw anybody paralyzed. I never saw anybody get a stinger because most time people didn't get dropped on their head. I saw from the time I was a fan through the first 15 years I was actually in the wrestling business, I think I saw 4, maybe 5 people. So a period of 25 years, I saw 5 people break an arm or a leg. Obviously it happened more often, but that's what I was present to see. I've seen people get concussions and knocked out. Yes, that's going to happen. But, spinal surgeries and stingers and things going numb and that's a modern thing, folks. But while he was retired, that's when he got together with Beth Phoenix. They had worked together on the roster, but they had never really been together. And so he had time to not only get together with Beth, they seemed so happy and perfect for each other. And he's a father now. He's got the 2 girls. He did the TV show that got a recurring role on and he lives in Asheville, North Carolina, it's obviously a beautiful place. He's near Dax and Cash from FTR. Asheville is probably the place to go now in North Carolina because the mountains are so beautiful, and Charlotte's gotten to be a big city, so you don't want to go there anymore. It was pretty, but it's like It's like you're in fucking the North now. But Asheville's beautiful. He's got a great place. And then the other bad thing toward the end of the program, they were about to move his mother from Ontario down to Asheville with him, and she got sick and ended up cancer and passing away before she could come down. So that was obviously, disheartening. But he starts thinking about one more match, and Beth, and I'll tell you what, she could put her foot down. She demanded to hear an okay from the best doctor in the world, and she worked with him herself to see that he could do it. And they were doing it. Actually, I think if AEW wanted a goddamn women's division, they ought to bring Beth Phoenix in to captain that ship. She looked better working with Edge than any of the women do on their program. And he's just in his warehouse in Asheville with his ring set up. But he got cleared. He made the comeback 2020 Rumble after 9 years. He won 2021, went to WrestleMania. Judgment Day and the botch of that was completely glossed over with about a 10-second B-roll, but we got a happy ending out of this piece.
Yeah, altogether, pretty good biography. Though, I think it was notable in what was kind of airbrushed out of for Sexton Hardcastle. Also, I'm kind of surprised it didn't go back to the WCW archives and show the matches he had there as a jobber.
I think they probably don't want to call people's attention to that. And I liked it. And also I was going to make a point that I thought, what is Lita on the outs? But then when I watched Rivals, she actually had comments in that program, but she was with Edge for a good period of time there on that run. And as they said in Rivals, was instrumental to the package they were presenting, but they just showed her in random footage and didn't even mention her name in the biography program.
Right.
Maybe the producer is pissed off at her or whatever of that show. Yeah. I don't know. But I haven't followed that era WWE that closely. Did they glaringly omit anything else about Edge that we should have known?
Other than his first marriage to Val Venis' sister. And then all the kerfuffle that happened therein.
With him and Matt and Lee.
Yeah,
no sense hashing up old wounds.
Right. So, I think why it didn't see the light of day, but then again, there is precedent with, say, the Macho Man biography, talking about how he, had a whole surveillance thing going with Gorgeous George's house.
Yeah, that standalone one biography still remains as the creepiest and kind of most backhanded complimentary episodes on Savage of all the ones they've done. Everybody else, even when they fucked up and their own families left them, somehow they figured out a way to redeem everybody at the end and put them all back together in a happy kumbaya circle. But Savage his heat stuck a little bit. But that I like the show. And again, and for the people who just want to pick at me to say, oh, you didn't like the tables, ladders. No, I didn't like the tables, ladders, and chairs stuff, not because it was Edge, but because it was anybody. Because it opened up a can of worms and it hurt a lot of people. And I blame the company more in this instance, because if they couldn't figure out to not push Edge to the top without him flinging himself through a bunch of furniture, then they should have all been fired for malpractice and misfeasance or whatever. It's not like you couldn't see that he was a top guy, and he had tons more ups. Think about this. If they hadn't made him go through all that horse shit to get to the level he wanted to be with all the stunt show matches, they would have had 9 more years of a top guy that right now is just at the age where he would probably be thinking about retiring for the first time. They would have had access to a guy that good and that over and that talented on their roster for that many more years. But no. But anyway. So nevertheless, that was the biography episode, and I love me some Edge. He's a nice guy. I always have. So I'm not knocking him, but that was the only part of the of his career that I could have done without.